Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I've got a special treat for you, a recap of the movie A Prayer Before Dawn. Spoilers ahead. Be prepared, watch out, and take care. The movie begins with the introduction of Billy, a boxer who participates in underground boxing matches in Bangkok, Thailand. Currently, he is preparing for an upcoming match. Billy was extremely nervous prior to his boxing match. However, after consuming some drugs, he felt a surge of energy and proceeded to excessively hit his opponent during the fight, ultimately losing control and the match. After the fight, Billy purchased more drugs from a dealer and returned to his house. The next morning, suddenly police come to Billy's house. After searching the house, police find some drugs and an illegal handgun from Billy's house, due to which police arrest Billy and take him away. Billy has a long sentence to serve, which he is sent to one of the worst and overcrowded prisons in Bangkok. After arriving here, Billy was subjected to several security checks by the guards and was subsequently searched. Once the search was completed, he was sent to his cell within the prison. However, unbeknownst to the other guards, one of them secretly sold drugs to Billy in exchange for money. The conditions within this prison are abysmal, with the state of the toilets being particularly distressing. Upon seeing their state, Billy began to vomit. Despite the overcrowding, with more prisoners being held than the facility could accommodate, Billy paid no attention to his fellow inmates and simply lay down on the ground to sleep among the hundreds of other prisoners. The following day, the guards briefed the new inmates on the rules of the prison, warning them not to engage in any fights. While queuing for drinking water, Billy inadvertently bumped into a member of a gang, resulting in a violent altercation between the gang and Billy. Despite putting up a valiant fight, Billy was eventually overpowered. As a consequence, he was confined to a solitary cell for 3 days. After being released from solitary confinement, Billy was transferred to a new section of the prison where he was housed with some of the most dangerous criminals and long-term inmates. He was assigned to a new room on the first floor where he would be living with 70 other inmates. Times leader of the gang in this room and on this floor is a menacing and frightening figure known as King. All present are fearful of him and obey his every command without question. King summons Billy for an interview and inquires about the reason for his presence. Billy admits to being a boxer and also involved in drug dealing. Upon hearing this, King orders Billy to perform 20 push-ups on the ground while he and his men mock and jeer at him for an extended period. However, Billy pays little heed to their taunts since he is aware that life holds little value in this part of the prison. Following this, some members of King's gang approached Billy and gave him drugs. One night, while Billy was in the washroom, some gang members approached him, scaring and controlling him before taking turns raping a new inmate in the prison right in front of him, hitting Billy and threatening him so that he does not tell anyone about the incident. In the morning, all the prisoners behaved normally, but Billy noticed that the new prisoner he had seen being raped the night before had hung himself. The memory of the incident remained vivid in Billy's mind, but he knew that he couldn't report what was happening to the guards, as Kang and the other prisoners would kill him while he slept. As Billy witnessed the events unfolding before him for the first time, his head throbbed with pain. Seeking relief, he visited the prison clinic and requested pain medication. However, the guard on duty was aware of Billy's history with drugs and refused to provide him with painkillers. Billy grew enraged and engaged in a physical altercation with the guard. Upon seeing the commotion, the other guards rushed over to intervene, but Billy bit one of them and became increasingly violent. In response, the guards subdued him by pinning him to the ground until he lost consciousness. Following the incident, Billy was once again thrown into solitary confinement. However, after some time, a girl came to apply medicine to his injuries. After a few days, Billy was released from solitary confinement. However, to prevent any further violent outbursts, the guards secured chains to his feet. Despite the financial assistance he received from his family in England, Billy began using drugs in the prison bathing area with Kang and his associates. One day, while looking out of the prison window, Billy spotted a group of girls together. He also caught a glimpse of the girl who had tended to his wounds while he was in solitary confinement. Other prisoners informed Billy that the girl was not actually female, but a transgender inmate named Fame who worked in the prison canteen. After learning about Fame's true identity, Billy went to the canteen and obtained cigarette cigarettes on loan from Fame. Billy had the intention of befriending Fame and exchanged all the cigarettes for drugs, quickly falling back into the grip of addiction. However, Billy eventually ran out of both cigarettes and money and found himself unable to acquire more drugs, which left him feeling strange and uneasy. One day, Billy spotted the same guard from whom he had previously purchased drugs. Approaching him once more, Billy requested drugs, but was informed that he didn't have enough money. The guard then requested that Billy beat up some Muslim boys working in the kitchen as payment. In a drunken state, Billy proceeded to the kitchen and brutally attacked the boys without provocation. In exchange for his violent actions, the guard provided Billy with drugs. However, Billy was consumed with shame and regret over his actions. He could no longer bear the thought of the life he had been living and refused to take the drugs. That night, consumed by despair, Billy attempted to take his own life by cutting his wrist. However, upon seeing the blood, other prisoners alerted the guards, and Billy's life was ultimately saved. After several months, Billy made the decision to stop using drugs in order to combat his depression and addiction. Instead, he turned to exercise and began practicing his boxing moves. A few days later, the guards removed the chains from Billy's feet. One day, while exploring the prison, Billy came across a boxing ring where he saw other inmates practicing boxing and engaging in exercises. Billy was overjoyed to see the boxing ring, but unfortunately, he was initially denied entry by the boxing coach. Determined to get in, Billy purchased cigarettes on credit from Fame's shop in order to bribe the coach. He promised to repay the debt soon, and his plan succeeded. The coach allowed Billy to enter the ring. Billy began to spend his days in the boxing ring, channeling his inner anger into punching bags. As he grew stronger and developed better stamina, the other boxers began to respect him. Despite returning to his cell exhausted and with scars on his hands and face, Billy found comfort in the knowledge that he was learning to live in prison. Even Kang and his other cellmates mocked him in an attempt to make him laugh. One night, a fight broke out among the prisoners and Billy joined in the betting, wagering 2 packets of cigarettes on a fish. Fortunately, he won the bet, but the losing prisoner refused to give him the cigarettes and threatened him with a piece of glass. Kang intervened and gave Billy the cigarettes he had won. Relieved, Billy went to Fame's shop and paid off all his debts with the cigarettes he had won. During their conversations, Fame shared with Billy that they were in prison for their father's murder because he used to abuse Fame for being a transgender. The boxing coach took a keen interest in Billy's techniques and helped him improve his skills in the ring, teaching him proper fighting techniques. After several real prison matches, Billy sustains multiple injuries, but he perseveres and applies the techniques taught by the coach, leading him to victory and eventually earning him fame in prison boxing. After the matches, we see the prisoners praying for their safety and freedom. The prison warden recognizes Billy's talent as a boxer and decides to transfer him from his old cell to the cell for boxing players. This will give him the opportunity to train more and eventually represent their prison in a national boxing tournament that will be held in a few months in another prison. As the prisoners gather to pray for their safety and freedom, Billy feels a sense of hope that he may have a chance to make a better life for himself through boxing. Billy began taking his training even more seriously and eventually became comfortable with his new fellow boxers who shared their stories with him during lunch breaks. Billy also learned how these individuals ended up in prison while training alongside them. As per tradition, Billy regularly met with Fame, and they developed a romantic relationship. However, when Billy saw Fame with another inmate, he became very upset and stopped speaking to her. During his time in prison, Billy also got a tiger tattoo on his back, which he believed would aid him in his fights. Later that evening, Kang and his gang caught Billy in the washing area and brutally assaulted him. They demanded money from Billy for the drugs he had borrowed a few months earlier. Kang's men threatened Billy, stating that he needed to either return their money or win the prison boxing tournament. Otherwise, they would inject him with a needle filled with the blood of AIDS-infected inmates, which would ruin his life. Billy became very stressed by the situation and turned to drugs once again. He then violently attacked one of his boxing friends in the ring, leading the guards to throw him into solitary confinement. While in isolation, Billy worked to overcome his anger and regain control of himself. After he was released from solitary confinement, Billy continued on his path towards self-improvement. After apologizing to his friends, Billy returned to his boxing cell and resumed his high-level training. His fellow boxers forgave him and became even more friendly towards him. However, Billy's troubles were far from over. One day, while in the middle of a boxing practice, he experienced unbearable pain and vomited blood in the washroom. The prison doctor informed Billy that his excessive drug use and intense training had caused internal bleeding, and if he continued with heavy exercise or drug use, he risked death. Despite the doctor's warning, Billy refused to give up and continued his rigorous training in preparation for the boxing tournament. He and other skilled boxers from the prison were transported by bus to another correctional facility. Upon arrival, they were greeted with a newly constructed boxing ring in the center of the prison. After a brief procession, the tournament began. Despite being in considerable pain, Billy persevered and waited for his turn to fight. When it was time for Billy's fight, his prison coach escorted him to the ring and helped him prepare. As soon as the referee signaled the start of the match, Billy began to dominate his opponent in the first round, throwing punches and even lifting and throwing his opponent to the ground. However, his opponent did not lose his focus and retaliated with a heavy blow to Billy's stomach, causing his pain to intensify. This made it difficult for Billy to continue attacking, so he began to defend himself instead. Taking advantage of this, his opponent pummeled him for several rounds, until in the fifth round, Billy fell down and was kicked in the mouth. The referee called a break to the match. By the final round, Billy's condition had deteriorated significantly, and his opponent was on the verge of victory. The opponent relentlessly pummeled Billy with a barrage of punches. However, Billy's opponent had become overconfident and exhausted, allowing Billy to knock him out with one powerful kick. The other prisoners in attendance cheered loudly and happily at the unexpected outcome of the match, and Billy's name echoed throughout the prison. As Billy looked out at the cheering crowd and his jubilant boxing coach, he suddenly experienced a sharp pain and collapsed, losing consciousness due to internal bleeding. An ambulance arrived quickly and transported him to the hospital for urgent medical attention. After a few days, Billy regained consciousness in the hospital and felt significantly better. With the assistance of a nurse, he got up and went to the washroom. On his return, Billy noticed that the police guard who had been watching over him was gone. For the first time in his life, Billy was alone outside the prison walls without any supervision or notice. He quietly left the hospital and began walking into town. However, as Billy reached the market area and train tracks, he changed his mind about running away. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life on the run from the police. So he decided to return to the hospital room. After fully recovering, he was brought back to the prison. It was during his stay there that his father, who lived in England, came to visit him. At the end of the movie, we learn that the role of Billy's father is played by the real-life Billy Moore, the man who served his sentence in that prison. As the two of them meet, they gaze at each other silently for a long time without uttering a word. In 2010, after serving 3 years in prison, Billy was transferred to a prison in England due to his outstanding boxing performance. The King of Thailand granted a pardon for the remainder of his sentence, and Billy was released from prison. Thank you for joining us into our review. We hope you had as much fun watching it as we did breaking it down for you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video from us.